Let's begin by taking a look at how we can start to add simple materials to our objects. So here is the ship that we built in the modeling stage. So right now it's just a flat gray color. Okay, so we need to start to define the look of some of the different surfaces on here, and we can do that using materials. Okay, and so to access our materials, we're going to go up to Window, Rendering Editors, and let's go into the Hypershade. So it's going to open up the Hypershade here, and you can see we have kind of a listing over here on the left, and then we have these sort of balls over here. Okay, some of these are associated with some of the imported data, but the material that is on our ship, if we take a look at this, we right click on this swatch here, or click on the swatch and then right click, and I can say select objects in initial shading group, and you can see that it's now selected the ship, so we can tell that everything is associated with this default Lambert shader. Okay, the spheres are there to give you an indication of how that's going to look with the shading, so with the highlight and with the shadowing. Okay, so you get a kind of a 3D effect here. You can see how some of these look a little bit different. Okay, so in order to add a material, we need to first create a new material. Okay, and we have options over here. We have different kinds of materials. We have Maya materials, and then we also have Mental Ray materials. Now if you're not seeing your Mental Ray materials, you may have to go in and under the plugin manager, just go in and make sure that your Maya to Mental Ray is loaded up, and other different kinds of materials that we can create. Alright, so the basic materials you're going to have available are Lambert, which you can see here, so go ahead and drop a new Lambert in. There's also Phong and Blinn are kind of the three mainstays, and you can kind of see the default look of those. So here's our Phong, here's our Blinn. The difference is sort of in the specularity, which is the highlight you see here. Okay, the Lambert, you're not going to get any specularity, so it's going to be really matte, flat surface. The Phong is, think of it a little bit more like a kind of a plastic or shiny plastic, and then the Blinn maybe for something more like metal, although there's obviously things that you can do to change all of these. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is select the particular kind of material we want to add, and we'll use one of these basic ones. So let's go ahead and add a Blinn. We can select our object here to add it. So if we select, let's say, one of these fins, we can right click on this and say assign material to selection. Now we can't really see much that's happened except the highlight, so let's change the color. We'll double click on the material to bring up its attributes, and then you can see in the common material attributes there are all of these attributes that we can change. Okay, at the very top you'll see one for color. We can dial the slider from black to white, change the value of it, or we can change the actual color. So let's make it red for now so that we can see it. So we'll change it to red, and you can see that that fin updates. Okay, so now we have this red fin that's a little bit shiny, okay, based on the specularity. We can also go ahead and middle mouse drag from the material into our scene onto the object. So we can add it to that fin, and we can come in here and add it to this fin. And now we've got those objects associated with this particular material. We can name the materials. Double clicking, we can go ahead and bring this up and call this Fins Blinn, so we understand what it is. Okay. We can also change the specularity of it. So coming down here under specular shading, you can see we can change the specular color. So you see where that highlight is? I can make that darker. Okay, and you get a good preview of what it looks like on our little swatch here. Okay, I can take the roll off down, which will reduce the specular amount. I can tighten up the spec by changing the eccentricity. Okay, so we can make something that has a tight spec, so something that's glossier if you want to do that, or you can make something that is more of a spread out specular look, which maybe is a little bit more of kind of like a metal. Okay, and then you have other settings for reflectivity and so forth. Okay, you can always go in and select your object and in the attributes you'll see that it has now the material listed, so it's associated with that particular piece. Then at any time we can come in and we can change our color. So let's maybe give it a little bit of green, and we can desaturate it, make it a lot darker. So it's almost kind of a gray with a little bit of green in it. Okay, if that's a little bit too green, maybe we can go ahead and take some of that green out, darken it up so it's almost black. Okay, so play around with your materials. If you want to try to use a Phong, you can do that as well. You'll have a few different options in here as far as the way the specular is calculated. Okay, you can see instead of the settings that we had in the blend, we have here cosine power and specular color are all we have for this one. All right, so to add materials and to work with materials, you want to use the Hypershade. Okay, now with this Fins blend selected, this is the area up at the top where we're going to have all of our materials listed. Down at the bottom is sort of our work area. And so if we want to take a look at this in detail, we can go ahead and map the input and output connections down here, and it'll show us, and we can just move around just as we would in a viewport. It'll show us our material node. And the way that Maya works with these, and works with anything really, is with nodes. So you have this material node and it's connected into this shader, and you start connecting things into this, you can start to get more complex material setups and more complex shaders. You can do that with any of these. Map these down here and you can see that you can start to work with these. Now in Maya 2013 there's also a node editor that you can access. So you can go into under Window Node Editor, and here if I want to create a material I can just right click and say create node, and then I can bring in a material. So let's create a blend here. Okay, and so I can go ahead and access my blend, and it looks a little bit different. I can go ahead and open up the blend. I can open it up all the way, and you can see all the inputs and outputs that we have here. So with this, you have a lot more control over visually kind of connecting things up. So it's just a little bit different way to work versus working here in the Hypershade. Okay, you can really create some complex connections in here that's maybe a little bit easier than you would come in here to do, but you can do much the same thing that you can in the Hypershade. Okay, so the Hypershades, where we're going to see this, I can kind of zoom in and make those larger or smaller. I can do the same thing here for these swatches. Okay, and then you also have your textures, utilities, and so forth, but we're really going to concentrate on materials here. Okay, so just remember, you can right click to add, or you can drag it onto your objects. So the next thing that we want to look at is how we can start to modulate the color. So we've created a material that is one color, this one black color. We can modulate the specularity, but what happens if we want to change the color over the surface of our model? Well, let's take a look at how we can use something called ramps to do that. So we'll take a look at that in the next lesson.